So, welcome to episode 1 of To Be Named podcast with two brothers who are of differing political orientations but enjoy discussing and finding common ground. So, I'm Nate.
I'm Matthew.
And so we're just going to talk about a little bit of our background and go from there. So, Matthew, what made you want to do a podcast?
Well, I always enjoyed having discussions over even controversial topics, and I feel like I like to set a precedent of having civil discourse even when you disagree.
Yeah, I remember when as growing up, we were always arguing, but it was usually mostly civil. Mostly, of course. Kind of in the same boat. That's why we're doing this. Kind of what made me want to do a podcast is just wanted to share ideas that weren't being talked about in the mainstream, but that are being talked about everywhere else, and trying to narrow down what the best solutions are out of those and finding ones that everyone can get on board with. And I feel like talking is the best way to do that, and it's always the way that I find myself in new places and thinking new things and thinking new solutions. So give some background on where you are politically and how you got there.
Well, I'm definitely conservative. I am a registered Talkin, but I don't necessarily go along with everything that the party does, so I think there are some fundamentals that we do agree on. I am very much the stereotypical religious conservative. I am a Christian. I believe in the Bible and what it teaches, but I also would consider myself originalist as far as the Constitution goes. I still believe that the Constitution is still one of the best government systems that humanity has put forth, and that's kind of where I come from.
Yeah, and that's something that I think we agree on, is that the system that we have here is one of the best ideas ever thought up. And kind of where I stand politically right now is I would consider myself progressive, but I also don't align with a lot of the progressive movement right now. I think we can be smarter than what's going on right now. But I'm always critiquing the fact that we have this potential for such a great system, and that it is a great idea, but we've seriously messed it up. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from a lot of the time, how to fix that. And I'm often looking at just the ways that we can make life better for everyone and simplifying all the questions to that. And so that's kind of where my values are based around, and that's what I seek to do in discourse when trying to find out the best solutions. So you obviously you can see we have differing perspectives. We're coming from different places, but we've found that it often leads to cool conversations and mixings of values on both sides, and understanding where each other are coming from better, so that we can consider everything rather than only half the story, and find common ground solutions that just make sense. So, and I think a lot of people value that, no matter what side you identify with, or if you hate politics even. So
what do you think a few of the people that have influenced your thought the most are?
Yeah, so first I would say Sam Harris. He just was someone I found when I was trying to learn how to like think better and think critically, and I learned a lot from him, and it inspired me to want to think harder and to come up with good answers and to not sacrifice quality when thinking through something and finding, keeping integrity through your thought process. So that's one of the biggest ones. As far as values go, I found a lot of inspiration in the like original teachings of the Buddha and what he discovered through the process of awakening and just discovering, fundamental truths about just experience, and that's such a tangible and what's the word? The word in like science for like something material.
Projecting it?
Like proof that's material that you can like sense.
Tangible?
No, but it's like it is tangible.
Oh well.
Well, anyway.
Yeah.
So, that really helped define my value system. And then, as of recently, Andrew Yang has been a big inspiration. Policy-wise, he got me kind of caring about politics and realizing that, even though I have what would be considered fringe views in the mainstream discussion right now, doesn't mean that they can't become mainstream and that good ideas can't get to the forefront of the discussion. And so that's where I'm at right now. So what about you?
Well, I think, honestly, the Bible has been a big influence on the way I perceive things. But as far as people, I think Ben Shapiro is definitely one of the people I like. I like his very logical, systematic approach to things, and I think that, as I say sometimes, I'll have Ben Shapiro as my spokesperson any day of the week. And then also I think Nate might cover me a little bit is Jordan Peterson. I think I really enjoyed his thoughtful approach to things, and how particularly even when he's giving interviews, he'll pause for a moment to really get his thoughts together and he's trying to say exactly what he wants to say.
Yes.
And I appreciate his boldness to challenge people and he believes he has insight they don't. And
Yeah, I like Jordan Peterson in the way he conducts himself and the way he thinks. I don't always agree with everything he says, politically speaking at times, but I really like his message on taking charge and organizing your life and making order out of chaos and sacrificing now for later and better payoffs in the future. So yeah, he was someone that I've listened to a lot as well. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so that's kind of some of the background that we have. So why don't we talk briefly about what have you been thinking about lately? What's
I'm just trying to balance out logic and considering people's feelings as well. Because I think sometimes the left, or at least the radical left, tends to focus very much on feeling, where almost at the expense of logic at times. But sometimes the right can get the opposite, where they're so utilitarian at times they can forget that you have to consider people's feelings, at least. And I feel like that's something I really try to do well, is by trying to balance out the logic with also considering how people perceive and feel.
Yeah. So that's like an interesting thing about like the political reality versus ideology, because just being idealistic and thinking about exactly what you want and then taking that to the public, there's certain things that half of people will probably never agree on, or certain people will never agree about, and you have to consider that when you're actually trying to get something done in a democracy, because you have to consider everybody. And part of the cool thing about the democratic republic that we have set up here is that people are able to we can represent the majority and the minority, rather than just mob rule majority, or whatever.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's like I said, taking the government. The bigger the government, the harder it is for them to be not utilitarian, if that makes sense. Because when you're governing a large body of people, you kind of sometimes you have to make tough decisions and I feel like sometimes the media and sometimes just the public is kind of sometimes they almost forget to consider that these governors and these leaders are making often very difficult decisions, and I think sometimes we should give them a little bit of slack sometimes. Obviously, you want to keep them honest, but also stop and try to understand their perspective. And this carries on to almost all political discourse, where sometimes people get offended about something before they really understand why the person's where they're coming from. When they hear something, they think, well, this person obviously must have some ulterior motives, but it's like, well, maybe they don't, maybe they just, or maybe they're misunderstood, or maybe there's something that you don't understand that you can glean from them. I think that kind of goes back to what we're talking about with discourse. Is sometimes you have to pause and let go of your offense, and sometimes you have to risk being offensive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely true. And I think, we can be more understanding of politicians, but I also think on the other side, we have to hold them accountable for the decisions they made when they really did mess up.
Absolutely.
And, there's a weird thing going on right now where the media and the politicians are friends, and they're hanging out and going to dinner parties together and whatever. And so politicians, they often aren't being held to account with the media. And I think that's a big problem.
Why don't we talk about the election a little bit then?
Alright, yeah, well, we're in the midst of this dumpster fire called the 2020 American elections. I think everyone in the country agrees that this is a mess, and it's kind of hilarious to see people try to be passionate about either of the candidates right now. I get that some people for Trump are really passionate because they still have that fire from 2016, and some people for Biden are really passionate because they don't like Trump. But no one's passionate about Biden, and it's just really sad to me to see that the election of a leader of our country is super unexciting, and that most of us just think it's a mess, and it's really a reflection on the state of our country right now.
Yeah, full disclosure, I voted for Trump in 2016, and I don't regret voting for him, because I think I agree with all his policy, but I just feel like his personality is just terrible at times. I just wish sometimes he'd be more tactical, not have to speak all the time. And, I think, I think Trump was just kind of the spark that kind of revealed like the state of things, and it brought out some of the things that are hidden. So in that way, I think it was alright. But yeah, it's just like I said before, if there's anybody else I could vote for besides Biden and Trump, I'd consider doing it, but there really isn't anybody that's actually has a chance.
Yeah, anyone who could actually win. I thought it was funny just because you mentioned, you wish you'd talk less. The Trump campaign went on the news today and said that they're going to let Biden speak more tomorrow in the debate.
Well, that's a good thing.
So, that should be interesting.
Maybe he's learning, maybe.
Maybe. We'll see what he does.
We'll see what he does, yeah.
And I still don't think we're going to have any big takeaways from this debate. I don't think it's going to change much.
No, I think anyone who's going to vote for who they already pretty much made their mind on this point.
I do think there still are some people who are waiting till the last second. I think there's actually a good enough people that it could, push the election one way or another. Maybe not the results, but it could definitely sway it significantly. So if it's on the line, then it would matter. What's interesting is I've been looking at polls in Pennsylvania, and everyone's saying that it's coming down to Pennsylvania, and Biden has been up by 7-8 points for a long time. But within the past week, he's dropped, and now he's only up by like 3 or 4 points in Pennsylvania. So this is within the margin that Hillary Clinton lost in 2016.
Yeah.
And so the election's definitely not over, and people's minds are still being changed is what I think that means and reflects, and I'm wondering why. I think it's because Trump has actually not been out that much this past week. He hasn't been on the news as much. Biden's been on the news more.
Yeah, if you look back at the 2016 election, there was a report that came out about Hillary's emails about 3 weeks before the election, and the media for about 3 weeks was pretty much talking about that. I think that was a big benefit to Trump because it took the focus off of him. I think I think that may have been what they were attempting to do for this recent Biden.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I don't think it's going to work.
I don't think it's going to work this time.
Yeah.
It's going to be close. I think if Trump wins, there's going to be a lot of unrest.
Yes.
Following, if he wins.
It's going to be weird.
Biden, I think that things might actually, at least for a time, kind of settle down.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think that's what a lot of people are voting for. I think everyone's ready for that and kind of expecting it now. So another Trump upset in a time like this, after everything that's been going on and how he's been acting, you're right, would just be chaotic, to say the least. Okay, so out of anybody who ran 2016 and 2020, you say that if you could vote for anyone else other than Trump or Biden, who would you have voted for?
Wow.
Who's your favorite candidate that you've seen?
Jeb Bush. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. No. See, I didn't really like hardly anybody that the Republicans actually put up this year. For even last election, there was a couple people that I thought were good, but not for president.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple people that like kind of up and coming that I like. There's what? Oh my god! Forgot his name again. Forgot in Texas.
Yeah.
Dan Crenshaw. Dan Crenshaw.
That's right.
he's someone that I kind of like. I feel like I like some of his points. He's he's pretty reasonable, and I think that he had some very good insights about some of the things that have transpired in the last 4 years. So I don't know if I like that. Know a bit more about him. I know that he doesn't have a lot of foreign policy experience, but maybe maybe in 2024, maybe 2028 he'll be well known, and we'll see what happens then. So
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, we were talking about him the other day, and I looked him up after you. We were talking about him. I don't like him.
you don't like him?
I don't like him. Okay, let me just read you some of the stuff on his Wikipedia page. So, he did not wear face masks consistently in settings advised by health experts and mandated by Texas Governor Greg Abbott's order. During his 2018 campaign, Crenshaw ran on a policy of allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices, becoming one of a handful of Republicans to endorse what was a primarily progressive idea, right? So this could be good for actually lowering drug prices. So that's cool, but then in 2019, he retreated from that position. Let's see.
Well, like I was saying, I've only really seen him see a couple of his speeches that I thought I really enjoyed what he had to say in those speeches.
Yeah.
So I'm not like convinced that I would vote for him for president.
For sure.
No, that's really my frustration with the Republican Party is there just isn't anybody.
Yeah.
And
it all seems so calculated. That all of them do.
Yeah, and then, well, obviously you could probably say Yang. Which
Yes.
But I think that Yang is some very interesting ideas. I would say he's the only candidate on the Democratic side that I even considered voting for.
Yeah. Which, I can't blame you. I could name a criticism off about any candidate you named on that side other than, the other ones who didn't get their fair spotlight, like Tulsi Gabbard. But, yeah, I like Yang. My main reasons for liking Yang is that he's human-focused, and he understands that life's changing, and it's changed, and it's something that a lot of us have been seeing for a long time. Technology has changed our lives forever, and there's something important that's coming with that. And, we need to shift the way we look at work, and we need to change the way our whole country runs and what we value if we want to, make it through this coming change, in a good way. So.
Yeah, and there were sometimes during the primaries that I felt like Yang was one of the only ones who made sense up there.
Yeah.
On stage, and I always feel like it made so much sense that people didn't didn't really recognize what he was saying.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, I'm not used to not witnessing drama at one of these events. This guy's actually saying something, proposing something, making sense, making a whole argument. And I think a lot of people tune out because when they watch these things, they're looking for the slams and what candidate is most exciting and at that exact moment. And I think Yang's message is the most exciting, but it's one that you have to let him explain for a second sometimes, because a lot of people weren't there. But I think next time around people will be there because the pandemic has really brought light to his message, and he made waves when he was running. So that's the election.
Well, one thing I would like to touch on real fast is that Trump's been saying a lot about election fraud.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like fraud is a concern that much. I think the biggest concern is just mismanagement is going.
Yes.
Making sure that
Absolutely.
the votes get in and that they're counted in a efficient manner. And there was an incident in California in the 2018 election where about 40,000 votes were discarded because
Yep.
voter signatures not matching.
Yep.
Now, I did not see in the news that at least there's a couple states, I'm not sure, all are doing it, but they have a system in place that if a signature doesn't match, they will contact you.
Yeah, and I think that's how it should be.
And that's how it should be. I think that is a big deal. So I'm hopeful that the election goes smoothly and that it's managed correctly. And but I admit that, and I think that Trump's emphasis on fraud is actually distracted from making sure and addressing real possible issues with management and collecting votes.
Yeah, well, and I think his whole entire thing there is that he is setting it up so when he loses, or if he loses, he can say, "Oh, it's fraud." And I was listening to someone, and the way they said it was, he's been setting the table for months. He's been setting the stage for this if this happens. But yeah, I agree, and we saw something similar happen in the New York primaries this year. A lot of ballots got thrown out because they didn't have postage, or they didn't have the right envelope, and all this stuff, because a lot of these, I think the problem is a lot of these states aren't prepared to do these elections correctly yet. We live in Utah, and I actually think Utah does elections one of the best. I don't know if you've been voting by mail since you've been voting.
I have.
But I have, yeah. So the only vote that I went in person for was the 2016 Democratic primary vote. But other than that, I've always had a mail-in ballot. That's how Utah does it. We've been allowed to do our elections fully by mail for a long time. It works well. All the county clerks are ready to do this already, and people know how to use the system here, and it's simple. You don't need postage. I don't know why you would require postage. I've heard some states do that.
That doesn't make sense.
You're setting people up for failure, I think, if you do that. You're setting it up for votes to get thrown out. Now, okay, so one thing that I've been hearing people talk about is they're calling it the red mirage, where on election day it's going to look like Trump won, and then as more and more mail-in ballots get counted, because those are primarily Democratic votes, the election is going to look like it switched. And then that's when you're going to have these people most likely to shout fraud and, oh, they swung the election and they cheated and all of this stuff. So are you worried about that? What do you think would happen in that circumstance?
I mean, I know Ben Shapiro has actually talked about this exact thing, and he said, I'm prepared for if that happens, or he's like, I won't be surprised.
Yeah.
And I think that, I feel like it's not going to be the average Republican who's going to be upset. I think it's going to be Trump that's going to be mad.
It's going to be Trump and his base.
And his base. I think that is kind of... I don't want... I think that it'll look bad for his base if they throw a fit about that red mirage thing happening.
But do they care?
I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of his base is completely confident that they're going to win again.
They're completely confident, and they think if they lose, they're not going to accept it. They're going to be mad. They think that violence is acceptable. There's been a poll on this. So.
And I just hope that the Republicans and his base are, if they lose, I really, really hope that they're gracious, more so than the Democrats were in the 2016 election.
Yeah, so the Democrats behaved horribly. And I should also note that poll on violence about how acceptable do you feel like violence would be as a response to who you want to win losing the election. And both sides said they had an increased response and violence would be acceptable if the other side wins. So that's not just a Republican thing, but either way.
So yeah. So I hope it's... I've already come in, I'm going to be, I'll accept our wins, I'll congratulate our wins, and I'll pray for our win. Either side who wins, so I hope most people are like I am on that.
Yeah, well, I feel like a lot of people are ready to just ignore politics again for a while.
Yeah.
And Biden winning would make that a lot easier.
Yeah.
And the thing though is I think there's going to be a long period of time where Trump coverage is still going to rule the media even if Biden wins. It's going to be, Trump's saying this, Trump said this, even after Biden gets sworn in. Trump's going off on Biden, and their ratings have been through the roof because of Trump, and it's going to be hard for them to let that go. Yes. But it will calm down. And, so let's talk about stimulus.
Okay. How much time we got?
We're at 35 minutes.
Okay.
So stimulus. Right now, the state of stimulus talks is about a needle's diameter of hope and about the whole world's size of despair. That's how I see it right now. There seems to be... Okay, so Nancy Pelosi on Sunday set this deadline saying Tuesday was when they needed to pass stimulus by. Yesterday, she said we're extending this until Friday, of course, because that was a stupid fake deadline. Mitch McConnell saying Wednesday he's refusing to do anything higher than $500 billion. Nancy Pelosi wants $2.2 trillion. The White House has put forth $1.8 trillion.
And I really think that for the short term, I think that they should try to accept the White House's deal.
Yeah.
I think that would get money into those pockets.
Yep.
And I don't. At this point, I don't see anything to do. If you can pass that, if Trump's willing to go along for something that much money, I say pull the trigger.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like Nancy Pelosi needs to stop playing games. And I think what's funny is that right now, because we're in the pandemic, every time one of these politicians tries to play a political game, they end up looking bad. Trump looked really bad when he said that he was going to hold the stimulus talks until after the election, so when he wins, he's going to pass it. That looks so bad, and he immediately took it back. Now he passed. Now they're putting forth this $1.8 trillion offer, and Nancy Pelosi's holding it up for stupid reasons. And, Mitch McConnell's just as terrible as he always is, in my opinion. I think that if Pelosi were to accept the deal, Trump would make the Senate Republicans fall in line. And that might even help their election chances. And but right now, in the Senate, in the House, and in the White House, it looks like the Republicans are set to lose.
Yeah, and I just think that that would actually benefit the Democrats more to accept this deal because they look like we're playing, we're leaning across the aisle.
Mm-hmm.
We're playing ball.
Yes.
And I think that would look really good for the Democrats, and so I really don't. I think it's just personal for Nancy Pelosi at this point.
Yeah, and I think that that might be a reason why Biden's poll numbers are dropping, because he's a reflection of Nancy Pelosi too, and she's holding up this stimulus talk, and Pennsylvania is one of those states that went red for Trump in 2016. And just specifically because he was talking about a populist message where jobs were being lost and people were suffering. And now, really nobody's on the side of the people who are suffering. But there's a limb being thrown out, and it looks like it's on Nancy Pelosi, and it is. And I think she's looking bad right now. And I think her tactics are bad. They're not working because they're tactics. You can't make it look like it's Trump when it's you.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, you gotta sometimes, I think if your politicians have to be willing to take a step back when it gets too personal. I don't know what her re-election status is, but...
Nancy Pelosi?
Yeah.
So she's going up against Shahed Buttar, and he is a great candidate, like really smart dude. Talks about a lot of really good things that actually matter to the day-to-day lives of people. Populist candidate, and sadly, not many people are hopeful that he's going to beat her. But what's interesting is that this year in the general election, it's two Democrats. It's Nancy Pelosi and him. So, yeah, he's a good candidate, and I think that maybe he'll have a chance because it's two Democrats this year, and people will consider that differently than Democrat versus Republican there in San Francisco. But, she's the Speaker of the House, and even though her approval ratings are abysmal, re-election ratings of our Congress people is super high, so we'll see. And she's been in the House for 30 years, so.
Yeah. That's why you need term limits.
Yep.
Like her.
So for stimulus, that's kind of where it stands right now. I think maybe if Biden wins, then they'll definitely try to pass that $2.2 trillion one. And that'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I'm not excited for a Biden presidency. He, is just establishment Democrat, and he's going to be a puppet for the establishment and the Forever Wars, and...
Well, you could have Harris president.
Huh?
You could have Harris for president.
Harris? Kamala?
Yeah, you could.
We could, yeah. Who knows? It could happen. And I think if Biden wins, he's probably not going to run for a second term, and it will be Harris. And I really hope the Yang primaries are.
Yeah.
But yeah, Harris for president would be even worse. And it's interesting that Biden picked Harris because both of them are the type of politician who will change what their opinion is based on whatever is popular at the time. They're not real. They're not authentic. They go with the flow, and so Biden's done some terrible stuff in the past. He'll probably follow the nice social rules now, but he's still going to be terrible with economic rules because there's a bipartisan consensus in Washington to be economically conservative to the point where you're not helping people. So.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Anything you want to say about the judge nomination?
I think it's stupid that everyone's talking about abortion. And there's a lot of talk about racism, which I understand that's prevalent, but like Roe v. Wade's never getting overturned. Like, why were people spending time on that?
Exactly.
That's about abortion, but for Brown versus Board of Education,
yeah,
they were asking her questions about that. Like, what is that? Why do we need to talk about that?
It's stuff from the past.
Yeah.
Especially something that's called super precedent, meaning that it's so rock solid that no one would ever seriously consider.
No. Of course not. So that's, I don't know, it just seems a lot of it's kind of stupid where people are thinking about it right now. That's just not what's relevant. I've heard that she's corporate friendly, but maybe that's just because our legislation's corporate friendly. I don't know. She doesn't put me off in any kind of way. Just by listening to her talk, she seems like a level-headed person. She seems to understand the role of the judiciary well, and I think she's going to be a good judge for that reason. But I'm not entirely confident that she's going to rule on the side of the people every time. So, but I don't know too much about her, so that's kind of where I am with that.
Yeah, I'm pretty much him there. She's usually a confident person. Obviously, has gotten pretty good marks as a judge over the years.
Yeah.
I don't think the Democrats are very serious. Reservation. I mean, they shouldn't.
Yeah, they're just going through the motions to show that they put up opposition. And that's what I hate. Is just like right now, it's all just political games. It's about poisoning yourself so that you'll get your donors and you'll get the voters that are vote blue no matter who, or vote red no matter whatever rhymes with that, you know, and it's just stupid. Like, don't think about yourself as a color or a side. Think about yourself as what matters to you. But I think that it's harder for people to express that with their vote in the current system we have, and I think maybe we'll talk about some policies next time. For now,
Closing statements.
what was that? Closing statements? Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I think this has been a good first one. I see hope I get better at these as we do more, and I look forward to talking about a variety of subjects, not just politics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll explore the brain space, and thanks for listening, whoever's listening, and see you guys in the next one.